The rain was coming down in torrents, and people were jostling for position outside the Conciergerie. It was the evening of October 16, 1793, and a rumor had spread that the deposed Queen Marie Antoinette would be moved from her cell to the nearby Luxembourg Palace later that night. Perhaps there, within those four walls, she would receive the mercy of the Revolutionary Tribunal. Instead, they dragged her through the streets behind a rude cart, past thousands of jeering onlookers, and by the time she reached her destination, the Queen was dead. This is the story of the last moments of Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette was born an Austrian archduchess and became the Queen of France at the age of 14. She endured much criticism throughout her marriage with King Louis XVI for her frivolous spending and her inability to produce a male heir. However, during the early stages of the French Revolution, she commanded great sympathy from the public. When the royal family made their famous escape attempt to Varennes in June 1791, the people showed little interest in their return. But once the word spread that Marie Antoinette had been recognized and cheered in a small village inn, many Parisians came to believe that the king and queen were merely disguised commoners, traveling incognito, and still held some affection for them. But this would all change dramatically when Marie's younger sister, Princess Elizabeth, arrived in Paris in April 1792. While the French revolutionaries viewed Marie as little more than a foreigner, they accepted Elizabeth as one of their own since she had been born in France. But soon, the princess fell out of favor when she tried to leave the country. As a result, Marie took it upon herself to smuggle her sister out of France by disguising her as a commoner. Once again, the revolutionaries felt betrayed, and this time there was no excuse for the sympathy which had previously surrounded the young queen. When the Tuileries Palace was stormed in August 1792, and the royal family taken prisoner, Marie knew that she had lost the support of the people. Now, they wanted the royals gone, and the monarchy itself to be abolished. On September 21st, 1792, the National Convention met and voted to abolish the monarchy and establish a republic. Louis XVI was suspected of counter-revolution and would eventually meet his demise on the guillotine, but for the moment, he was thrown into a cell within the Temple prison while his wife and children were sent to the Conciergerie. Marie was charged with a variety of crimes against the revolution, including the alleged crime of having been born a foreigner. In an ironic twist, Marie's foreign origins, which had initially gained her much sympathy, now turned the people against her. During her trial, which lasted only 3 days, the defense attempted to prove that Marie had done nothing wrong, but they were unsuccessful. On October 14, 1793, Marie Antoinette was found guilty and sentenced to death. At first, she hoped for a stay of execution so that she could spend her final hours saying goodbye to her children. But this was not to be. That same day, she was led to the guillotine. At the last moment, she changed her mind about going forward with the execution. But when she asked for a glass of water, her request was denied because, according to one witness, she had come to drink the water of life. But even though she didn't say a word during her trial, Marie Antoinette had plenty to say during her final hours. First, she wrote a letter to her family, which read, My heart is broken at the thought of parting from you forever. Oh, my beloved children, my greatest concern is that you should live in misery and die of want. You will never know how much your dear little image has sustained me during these long and terrible weeks. If a mother's love could restore life, you would both be alive now and flourishing. After writing the letter, she composed a final statement. I die innocent of all the crimes laid to my charge. I have been solely anxious to save my children. I send them to you with my last breath, my only remaining strength. May God Almighty, the Father of us all, have you, dear children, in His holy keeping. Remember, dear children, divide the little property left us by our dear departed relatives among you after paying my debts and funeral expenses. Do not forget that you are a Bourbon and do not dishonor your family name. After composing herself, Marie Antoinette prepared for bed, undressed, and put on a clean nightgown. Then she washed her face and combed her hair before brushing off her dress. She spent her last moments on earth praying, reading a book, and listening to music. At around 4 a.m., she heard the sound of drums, which signaled that it was time for her to die. She dressed quickly, but refused to wear the white cap which had been customary for women to wear during the French Revolution. Instead, she wore the large red velvet nightcap which had been a gift from the King of Sweden. Then she put on her square-necked black velvet dress, which had been a gift from her mother, and fastened a single pearl necklace round her throat. As dawn broke, she walked to the center of the room where a wooden board had been set up. This was her platform, which would lead to the guillotine. Marie Antoinette was then led to the stairs. There, the crowd began shouting for the Queen's life to be spared, but she couldn't hear them. All she could hear was the tolling of a nearby church bell. When she finally emerged from the palace, the crowd roared with anger. Some screamed, go on, while others cried, long live the Republic. A man in the crowd shouted to her, Madam, you are the last Queen of France, and the crowd applauded. Then another man yelled, you shall be the last, and stabbed himself in the chest with a dagger. Marie Antoinette recoiled in horror. She was helped up the steps leading to the guillotine, and her head was tied to the block. She made one final statement before the crowd. I die innocent. I declare before God and all of you here assembled that I am innocent of all the crimes I have been charged with. I accept this death with the same resignation that I would if my conduct had been different. Let my death be a warning to those who, like me, have been deprived of virtue, honor, and dignity. She was then beheaded in front of a crowd of over 2,000 spectators. One eyewitness said, it was about 8 o'clock in the morning when the fatal blow was given, and it was so well executed that the unfortunate woman's head remained for a few moments in its place. It was then cut off and exhibited to the people, who cried, long live the Republic. The head was carried on the end of the executioner's sword, and the body was dragged on a hurdle, all rather a rude cart. For a moment, the crowd was silent. They watched as the Queen's headless body was dragged away. Then the crowd erupted into cheers. Many people went home after witnessing the execution, feeling proud that they had played a part in the fall of the monarchy. Others lined the procession route to the cemetery where Marie Antoinette would be buried. She wasn't given a proper burial until 1871, nearly 100 years after her death. But the spot where she was killed became a place of pilgrimage for royalists who mourned the loss of their fallen monarch. In the aftermath, the French government struggled to come to terms with the consequences of the revolution. Many members of the Jacobins and Sansculottes feared that the violence would turn the population against them. Despite this, the Committee of Public Safety pushed ahead with the Reign of Terror, which lasted from September 1793 to July 1794. During this time, over 17,000 people were executed on the guillotine. Eventually, the excesses of the revolution led to the Thermidorian reaction, which saw the downfall of Robespierre and the end of the Reign of Terror. Following this, the Directory came to power, which proved to be inefficient and corrupt. Eventually, Napoleon seized control of France and established the consulate, ending the French Revolution. Marie Antoinette had become a martyr for the new regime, and her story was used by both sides of the political spectrum to advance their agendas. For the royalists, she was a tragic victim of the revolution who died for her beliefs. For the revolutionaries, she was an icon of the excesses of the monarchy and a symbol of the need for reform. Today, she remains one of the most famous and infamous women in history. Whether you view her as a tragic figure or a symbol of oppression, one thing is certain. The Queen was truly dragged to her death. Now it's time to hear from you. What did you think of the final moments of Marie Antoinette? Be sure to comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos. See you next time.